Okay, we are now recording. Richard, fantastic. We're starting to get this thing working now, mate. So it's fantastic. Thank you for all the advice. So obviously a big welcome to Maria. Just to give a little bit of feedback, as per the original email on Monday morning, the session we was going to be running today was with Shay. I think most of you, or some of you, have actually met Shay before. He spent most of his career working as a business coach. Unfortunately, his daughter's ill. So he's obviously, he needs to obviously spend time with his daughter. Obviously had to her beck and call at this moment in time. So I have to say a big thank you to Maria, who we contacted, and she got back to us late last night. We had a quick chat this morning for stepping into the brief. So Maria, thank you very much for doing this. And the reason what we're going to do is to change things, what we're doing very, very, very slightly in terms of the actual talk, where Maria is going to run through a lot of the support that's actually available for business at the moment. So Shay was going to be covering about the business planning side. Maria's going to go into, in English, explain some of the things that are actually available, where it works. There's been a lot of information out there. If anything, it's probably too much information. Is that probably a correct thing to say, Maria?
I think the problem around it is that lots of people have got lots of questions. We've got guidance, but not all legislation yet. So it's confusing for everybody.
Yep, no problem at all. So what will happen is Maria will basically give you a talk through. Pretty much, I think you've done this with every single one of your clients so far. Is that correct?
Most of them we've got through now. Yeah, a few more to go.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. So bear with me 1 second. I just need to take the picture off for one. Oh, are you sure?
Maria starts.
Oh, right, okay. It's okay. Emma wants to walk past in a minute, but she's actually in a pyjamas, so she doesn't want any of you to see what she's wearing. So we'll work on it eventually. I can describe it, but we have other ladies present, so I can't really do that. So Maria, I'm going to hand over to yourself. Obviously, thanks again for obviously doing this. Ladies and gents, if you want to make obviously notes along the way, Maria will cover obviously probably most areas, and then a small group of us should be able to help obviously answer questions there. So Maria, I'm going to hand over to yourself if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Right, what I'm not going to do is to give you all the phone numbers and the links and what have you. If you want me to, where I can put those into the group later. So I'm going to go through the main sort of topics that are out there to help you and how you access them and what you're expected to do and what to be aware of. So I have got notes with me. So the first one I'm going to cover off on, which I think most people are interested in, is the job retention scheme. So firstly, what I just want to make clear is the job retention scheme covers jobs and sort of pay where sort of the work has been affected due to COVID-19. Now, how the revenue are going to actually sort of check up on any claims or the proof they're going to ask you to provide, we don't know yet. But my advice to you would be that, because we don't know what they're going to ask for yet, make sure that you've sort of got documents and notes in place and sort of keep a journal of how it is actually affecting your business. So if they do come back and ask you, you've actually got something in front of you. And so there's going to be sort of such a large amount, I don't know whether they're going to, but by my very nature, I'm sort of risk averse. So keep a journal of how it's actually affecting your business. So it's just a practical point. Now, to qualify for the job retention scheme and the furlough, I don't know whether you're all like me, I'd never even heard of furlough until a few weeks ago. And it's certainly not mentioned in any legislation up to sort of a few weeks ago. But to qualify for furlough, you've got to have a PAYE scheme that was set up at February 2020. And the employee that you go into furlough must have been in that scheme at February 2020. That's to avoid obviously any sort of fraudulent applications and what have you. But what's interesting about it is that you can, if somebody sort of put their notice in or subject to redundancy and they were due to leave this month, as long as they're on that scheme at Feb 2020, you can go back and change it. So you can reinstate someone as employed and then change their status to furlough. Not a tax point at all, but a HR point. We don't know what this is going to look like later on. I'd imagine some solicitors who sort of no fee if we don't win a case for you, are going to have an absolute whale of a time sort of saying, have you got a claim against your employer because they changed your status without your agreement? So what you need to make sure you do is get all the HR papers in place as well. So it's unlikely that anybody has got anything in their terms and conditions and their contracts of employment about changing to a furlough status. So you need to make sure that you've got the agreement that these employees agree to the change of status to furlough from whatever their normal status is, whether they're employed or employee or worker. So make sure you get that HR work in place. Now you need to pay your wages at the normal date, again, unless you actually agree with your employees that you can delay payment. So we're expecting the portal to come online to claim that 80% sometime in April. It's not there yet, and we're sort of into April tomorrow, no, a couple of days time, isn't it? But it's not there yet, but we're expecting the portal in April when you can claim that 80%. We don't know how long it's going to take for HMRC to pay it over to you, but you need to pay your employees at the expected due date unless you come to an agreement with them. So the furlough top up that the government is offering is 80%. It's up to you whether you want to just pay your employees that 80% or whether you want to pay them 100% and then claim the 80% back. You can backdate it to the 1st of March 2020. But they can't do any work for you. So they're actually sort of saying that your business, they've got to sort of have, the business has got to be affected by COVID-19. They can't do any work for you. They can, however, do training, but they can't do any sort of work or services that's part of their normal jobs for you. They can work for other organisations while they're sort of furloughed for your organisation. They can do voluntary work. And some people are getting confused about that. It's like, can they do any work at all? So they can't for you. They can do training. They can work for other organisations, and they can volunteer. What else have we got? So that's sort of, and also the pension and NI contributions are going to be covered by the 80% as well. A lot of employers won't be paying employers NI anyway because they'll be qualifying for the employment allowance. But if you're a bigger company and there is an NI liability, you'll also be able to claim 8% of that. The furlough leaves, it's got to be in 3-week blocks. So you can't do a few days here and a few days there. You've got to do it in 3-week blocks. So if you do from 1st of March, you've got to do March, April, May, but you can sort of start it in the middle of March, you can start it at the end of March. You can start it when you like, but it's got to be 3 weeks. And then you can either put them on furlough again, or you can take them off. So it's important if you're doing those sort of changes to their contracts, make sure you've got that flexibility to review it every 3 weeks. So that's the minimum amount you can do it for, is 3 weeks. Like I said, the portal's due to be set up. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. You are going to need, obviously, all your PAYE references to be able to claim through it. There's a lot of scams around at the moment, so be careful if you get any emails with sort of click this link, this is the portal. Make sure it's actually gov.uk. I'll sort of say, I think the IT advice generally is don't click in links, isn't it? Actually go and put it into your browser and find it through the HMRC site. So we're still waiting for that. What else? Directors, that's a massive question. Is it, can directors qualify? Yes, they can, as long as they're on the PAYE scheme. They can continue to pay themselves dividends separately from their profits. So you can only claim what goes through the PAYE scheme. And can directors work? What they've said is that the directors can carry on sort of with their statutory responsibilities as a director. Now, one of the statutory responsibilities of a director is to sort of look after the company and do their best for their shareholders. So is working as normal, sort of making sure that you sort of keep advertising, keep visible, keep marketing, part of that statutory responsibility? I don't know the answer. So it's open to interpretation. So sort of, can directors carry on working? Yes, and this is the sort of phrase, it's like they can do whatever they need to complete their statutory responsibilities as a director. So very open to interpretation, that one is. And the other thing to bear in mind is holidays. While your employees are on furlough, they'll still be accruing holiday leave. And when everything gets back to normal, and sort of businesses want to be out there pushing, getting work done and what have you, you're going to have to sort of find some way of managing that holiday leave as well for your employees. So you, again, you might want to consider that when you're looking at changing the terms and contracts. So that's furlough. Right, the other thing I'm sort of going to go on to now is the small business interruption loan scheme that's around there. It's actually sort of being administered by the sort of British Business Banking, and last time I looked there were about 80 lenders on there. I must admit I haven't looked at it for a few days, but again, to qualify for one of these loans, your business has to have been affected by COVID-19, and so you have to sort of not be able to lend under normal commercial terms. Because this sort of fund's supposed to be sort of for businesses who wouldn't normally qualify. The banks have had a sort of real sort of blasting in the last few days for asking for personal guarantees and things. The face of the lending is constantly changing. The high street banks are now being more sort of tolerable about who they'll lend to and what guarantees they're asking for. On guarantees, I'll just say you can get an insurance against a personal guarantee. Not many companies do them. I've actually got contacts with an advisor who knows of a couple that do them. By the way, this is not a sales pitch, I don't get commission. It's just, again, if you want, I'll put the contact details into the group. So some of them are still asking for personal guarantees, but now you can apply for these loans without the personal guarantee. But what you'll need is to be able to sort of prove that your business is viable going forward after we're out of COVID-19. So the government are backing these loans 80%, but that backing is to the lender, not to the borrower. So you need to put onto your application and prove that you've got a viable business going forward, and that you'll be able to meet the repayment terms. There's lots of sort of various loans out there, and quite honestly, my advice to you would be to talk to an advisor on those, and I think they're worth their weight in gold in these circumstances, because there were that many offers, and you want to make sure that what you go for actually fits your business. You might, instead of sort of the small business interruption loan, you might just go to extend your overdraft, or you might go for some sort of asset finance, or just a normal loan. And if you can get a sort of rent holiday or a mortgage holiday, that might be a better alternative for you. Lots, or a combination of all of them. So as I say, you know, you're best talking to an advisor. If you are sort of going to go for a rent holiday, please make sure you talk to your landlord, because they might not have the mortgage holiday, and they've got their bills to pay as well. So approach your suppliers first and see what arrangements you can come up with. And the other thing, I was listening to Guy earlier on mortgage holidays and things like that. They don't know yet how this is going to affect your long-term borrowing capacity and your credit scores and things like that. If you're close to coming off a sort of fixed term mortgage or any sort of borrowing, or you're sort of moving your lending from credit card to credit card for 0%, it can all affect your credit score. So just be aware of that when you're looking at applying for these loans, which ones you apply for, how much you apply for, and whether you can actually afford to repay them. And it might be that this might also be a good opportunity if you're thinking about growing your business or buying some new assets into your business, especially engineering companies, taking advantage of annual investment allowance and things like that, this might be a good time to actually get those loans in place, and you might get some good deals on them now. So just be really careful about the loans. Different lenders have different criteria and different forms to fill in. What I sort of say is go onto the British Business Banking website, choose which lender and have a look at them, and then decide if you're going to sort of get separate advice on that. I certainly wouldn't take one out without having separate advice. Right, so that's loans. Small business rate relief. So if you've got premises and you actually qualify for the small business grant fund, so if you don't pay any rates at all, if you're getting the rate relief and you're not paying any rates at all, you'll be getting a £10,000 grant. Different councils are doing this different ways. Some councils say they're writing out to businesses. So we've got letters landing in business premises which are locked up and empty because everyone's staying at home. So what you want to do is go onto your local council websites and find out what you need to do if you're entitled for one of these small business rate relief loans. So it's sort of £10,000, and if you're eligible, the council will be contacting you. But I say it's these letters that are going to go to business premises. So if you sort of look at your local council, see if you can register online for them, or there's an email address. I think like phone lines are madly busy, so you're better off if you can email them to apply for these things. They're saying that that money is coming into council coffers any time soon, within the next few weeks. So some councils have already got applications in. Wolverhampton Council are inviting you to apply online, and they're expecting to sort of pay it out all in the next few weeks. And it's per premises. Each premises will qualify for a sort of £10,000 loan. Now, whether they're going to have a look at if a business has got more than one premises and they're going to restrict it is not clear. From what I've read, it's per premises and it's £10,000 per premises, and it's designed to help you pay your rent. So it's not for you to just sort of shove in your back pocket and go on a holiday as soon as this is all over. It's to actually keep your business going. So to apply for it and do use it for the right means. What else? So as well, the retail, hospitality and leisure industry. So if your rateable value is sort of less than £15,000, so you're paying a little bit of rate, so you're over the sort of £10,000 grant, but you're less than £15,000 rateable value, you can also get the grant of £10,000. If your rateable value is £15,001 to £51,000, you can get a £25,000 grant, and this is for sort of shops, restaurants, cafes, pubs, any live music venues, hotels, guest houses, and all that type of thing. Again, they can be contacted by their local authorities. I just want to add a bit here about if you've got a furnished holiday letting business, and if you're in that sort of category, the bottom's dropped out your market, you have to sort of have it available for letting for 210 days, and you actually let it for 105 days. So if the bottom suddenly dropped out of your letting business and you don't qualify for that furnished holiday letting status right now, remember you get a 2-year period of grace. So if for 2 years you have qualified and then you don't qualify, you have to apply for that grace period. It's really important if you've got furnished holiday lettings, because there's lots of different tax advantages to being able to meet that criteria. So remember, you've got that 2-year grace period for furnished holiday lettings. If by cancellations you won't qualify for that, but you will get that grant from your council. Okay, so self-employed grants. So these apply to sole traders and members of partnerships. So the directors and the job retention scheme, for employees and that type of thing. So if you're self-employed, you're a sole trader, or you're a member of a partnership, this bit's for you. So they're going to base the grant on the average of 3 years taxable profits. If you've been trading for less than 3 years, it'll be based on that, but you've got to have been trading for at least 1 year. So you've got to at least have sort of had 2018-19 in the bag. If you're late filing your returns, they're giving you till, what's the date, 23rd of April 2020 to get your accounts and tax return in. So you can still qualify. And they're saying that's why they've sort of left this until June, is to give all those sort of late filers a chance to catch up. You can imagine we're a bit busy at the moment with people who have neglected their tax affairs and what have you. But hey ho, suddenly they all want to get it done. So you have to have filed for 18-19. What's more, you have to have sort of traded in 19-20, and you have to be intending to trade in 2021. And they say you should currently be trading. Now, obviously, a lot of these people aren't trading because of COVID-19, and they say that's an exception. So if you're not trading because of COVID-19, again, we don't know what evidence they're going to ask you for. So keep a journal about sort of how COVID-19 has affected your business. And the downturn in profits has to be due to COVID-19. So that's sort of the way they've written it. What they're going to ask you and how they're going to police it and how you need to justify and how they're going to check it, I don't know. But those are the rules. So the downturn in profit has to be due to COVID-19. You have to still be trading unless you can't because of COVID-19. You have to intend to carry on trading for 2021 to qualify for it. So it's 3 years average. Unless you've been trading for sort of only 1 year or 2 years, then it's 1 year or it's 2 years. And it's 80%. So they're giving you the same benefit as employees on PAYE schemes. It's going to come online in June. We don't know how it's going to look like yet for you to claim, and they're going to limit it like they have for the PAYE up to an average of 2,500 a month. And at the moment they're paying it for 3 months. That might be extended depending on where we are in that time. So what else is there? Also, as well, the majority of your income has to be from your self-employment. So what we see sometimes is that people might have an employment and they might also have a self-employment on the side. If that's not your main income, you're not going to qualify. So your income from your self-employment has to make up at least 50% of your taxable profits on your 18-19 tax return. Now, obviously, if you don't put a tax return in, if you're not registered, you're not going to qualify. They're giving you till 23rd of April 2020 to get your affairs up to date. Remember, if you are in default, you're probably going to get interest and penalties. What normally happens before COVID-19 is that if somebody was due repayment of tax and they were liable to interest and penalties, HMRC would take that before any repayment was made. Whether they're going to take interest and penalties before the grants are paid out, we don't know. I'd imagine they would, but it's not clear. And they're saying HMRC will contact you if you're eligible. At the moment, you don't need to do anything. And they put a big, HMRC have actually put a big thing out, so it's obviously going on at the moment. They're saying beware of scams. People are putting big scams out about click here for your refund. They've actually said, you know, just be really careful about this. They will contact you. They won't phone you for your bank details. So just be really careful what you're clicking on and look out for the claim when it comes through. I'd sort of say, you know, get in touch with your advisors, basically. It's going to be counted as taxable income, so you are going to have to pay tax on it, but it's not VAT, not VATable. There's no output tax on it because it's not a supply for services. So it's taxable income, but it's not VATable. And what I'd also sort of say, so that's the sort of self-employment grants. Look at charity grants as well. A lot of charities are giving grants to especially the creative sectors, so musicians, artists, people like this. There's lots of charitable grants out there. If you're thinking of setting up a charity or a kick and applying for grants, this might be a good time to do it. So there are opportunities out there. Okay, so deferring payments. So VAT is an automatic deferral for your VAT due between March and June. You're going to have to sort of cash it up by the end of 2021. And if you do want to take advantage of the deferral, HMRC don't automatically know that. You don't have to apply for it. But what you will need to do is cancel your direct debit, because they just take it and assume that you want to pay it unless you've cancelled your direct debit. So you don't need to do anything except cancel your direct debit. You do still have to put your return in on time. So the filing deadlines haven't been moved at all. So you need to make sure that your return is prepared and filed in time. Cancel your direct debit, then you automatically get the deferral. If you've got a July payment on account due, automatic deferral to that till January 2021. You don't need to do anything, that'll be automatic deferral. Those tend not to be paid by direct debit. People sort of make the payment in July. You don't need to make that payment, you don't need to do anything. It'll be added on to your January 2021 liability with no interest added to it. If you want to delay paying your PAYE, your corporation tax, your CIS, all those types of taxes, you need to call them to arrange a time to pay agreement. They're being very good on agreeing sort of no interest on them, there'll be no penalties on them, but you do need to apply for that time to pay. So that's sort of PAYE, corporation tax, CIS, all those other taxes. Be careful there, because from 6th of April 2020, something that was in the last Finance Act, HMRC become a preferred creditor for some taxes again. So any taxes that you've collected on behalf of HMRC, so that's like the tax for your PAYE, that's like your VAT, that's like your CIS, so you've deducted these or collected them from somebody, they'll be a preferred creditor. So if you arrange for a deferral on these or time to pay on them, if you try to get other loans and credit later on, it might actually affect your capacity to do that. Or if your company doesn't sort of quite make it, HMRC will have first call on those. Accounts filing deadlines. Companies House are saying that if you can't file your accounts due to COVID-19, so if you can't meet the accounts filing dates, rather than incur a fine, you can apply for an extension. It's a really easy process. You just go on to sort of Companies House, log in with your email and your authentication details, and it gives you a sort of drop down of why you're applying for an extension. One of them is COVID-19. You press the button, and the ones I've looked at where sort of clients have asked us to go for the extension, it comes through within minutes. If you don't file though and don't apply for the extension, there's very little Companies House will be able to do for you. You will get a penalty and it will be payable. So if you need that extension to file your company accounts, apply online, and you'll get a 3-month extension to filing your accounts. And not wishing to do myself out of work here, but if you're in that situation where actually you can't pay your accountant because you're keeping your cash tied, that might be an option for you to sort of say, look, can't pay you at the moment, can I apply for that extension? And it gives you 3 months sort of breathing space to be able to pay them and get the accounts done and filed on time. I think that's about everything that I was sort of going to cover, unless anybody's aware of anything that I've missed. If I missed any sort of big topics, shout up, put your questions there, and I'll sort of cover them So I've been doing these almost daily for over a week. So I think those are the main things that are going to apply to you. But over to you, Brett.
Yep, no problem at all. Thank you very much for running through that, Maria. I think it's actually great to have that just in plain English, in fairness. I've got a couple of questions to ask. I'm going to throw this open to the group first of all. If you'd like to raise your hands for any questions you've got and you'd like to post to Maria, anything you're unsure of. Tony, that's obviously one way to do your hand. There is a button you can press on your computer if you want to raise your hand there. I don't know if you can see that. Is everybody used to that now, or no? Okay, so we have Lee with his hand up properly. Tony, did you want to ask a question first of all? You did. Right, Lee, we'll go to Tony first because he was waving his hand in terms of putting his hand up. So Tony, over to you, mate, if you want to unmute yourself.
Can I just say, I thought that was really good, succinct, and thank you very much on behalf of everybody else. There's so much crazy stuff going on, and everybody's becoming an expert, and I'm listening to the expert. I, unfortunately, have a limited company, and I was told to by my accountant, pay yourself a minimum of like £1,000 a month, and then pay your wife 700 quid and bang the rest out in dividends. Obviously, it's just how it is. With using your crystal ball for the future, should you really change that limited company tax?
Okay, yeah, okay. So when the Chancellor announced the package for the self-employed, I think it was last week, he very, very strongly intimated that he was going to create a more level playing field for self-employed, for directors, and for people under PAYE. So the advice you were given obviously suited your circumstances at the time, and that's very common advice. It doesn't suit everybody, but it does suit a lot of owner, manager, directors, and it will have sort of saved you a lot of tax over the years. And with my sort of picking up what I have, I sort of say, everybody, after this is all over and sort of coming up to the next budget, you really need to be talking to your accountant what strategy is right for you, because we're expecting the tax landscape to change drastically.
Oh, Tony, can't hear that.
There is a movement in actual fact, and I actually agree with it, to lower because we've got to pay for it at the end of the day. And looking forward, I would welcome, and I think it's going to happen, that they'll lower the VAT threshold. So anybody who's doing a business, I mean, I scraped in at under 80,000 on the turnover last year by holding stuff back and juggling around. But if it gets lowered to £10,000, then do you know what? Everybody's then on a level playing field for that. And that's a discussion for another time. But I would welcome that, because then if you're starting a business, just pay the VAT. That's all it is, isn't it?
To be honest, Tony, a lot of the conversation I've been having with members, obviously well-connected people externally outside of the beer, so we're all discussing exactly the same thing. We think there'll probably be a VAT increase, there'll be lowering thresholds, there'll be a massive overhaul of everything. It's going to be a case of wait and see, but there's a serious quantity of cash being put out there. It's got to be paid back at some point. Otherwise, it'll be our grandkids who'll still be paying this. It's absolutely horrendous. And Maria, you'll probably be in agreeing with this. There's going to be so many changes, it'll be unreal.
It's going to be absolutely massive, and for us as accountants, we've been expecting changes for a while. And in fact, when the coalition was in, the government did try to get some changes through, but they hadn't got a big enough majority. So I think these changes have been coming anyway, and this is just a massive opportunity for the government to put some real big changes through that they've been wanting to for quite a while.
So great question from Tony. Obviously, great response from Maria. I know that Paul, welcome to Paul. Obviously, joined a little bit late there, so we couldn't say hello. We're going to go to Lee first, and then I know Paul's got a little question as well. So Lee, over to you, mate.
Yeah, I don't expect an answer now, because as we've all probably been doing, been asking everybody in his blog. But this job retention scheme, the furlough scenario for a single director limited company such as myself, which a lot of members in the BSO I'm sure are in the same category. Nearly 75% of my revenue is from a reactionary type service that I give, which of course went off a face last Monday evening. But the retainers that I still have are continuing. So does that by default stop me furloughing myself?
Yeah, and this is where I sort of was at great pains to say that they do say that a director can carry on with their director statutory duties. So I can put a link into the group which points you to what are your statutory responsibilities as director. And one of them is to look after the well-being of the company and to sort of maximise profits for shareholders. So could you argue that, well, actually doing this little bit of work is looking after the interest of the shareholders? And I don't know we don't know the answer. I think where I am on it is, if you claim and you have to pay it back, what have you lost? As long as you claim in good faith.
I mean, with what people are saying and what you said earlier, I mean, I'd be far off better just emailing all my monthly retainer clients and saying, right, postpone it, cancel it until this is all over. But, I think
where I'd be on that is that going forward, you need to keep those maintenance contracts in place for the long-term good of the business. I think that would be my argument.
I was going to say, Lee, speaking to other accountants, other people on this point, because it is probably the most commonly asked question on the phone calls I've been having, and it has been, crikey, for what seems like forever, but only about a week or so, is that at the end of the day, let's face it, I am your customer. If you can't service us, we will have to go elsewhere if we have an IT issue.
Exactly.
So effectively, by you not servicing us, means you are destroying your own business. Which means, which in other words, you're then damaging your shareholders, which is actually against the Articles of Association.
I think that's the argument I'd put forward, that you're protecting the long-term viability of your business. I would just sort of say, Brett, that if anybody, even if you're not my clients, if anybody's got any questions they want later or they want to reach out to me, they're very welcome. So make sure you put my details up there.
Absolutely. I mean, and just going back to Lee's point there, the other conversation we're having is that even if you can't go down that route, you've also filed yourself, you file your own tax return as well, in theory. So if not one way, you get perhaps the other. So it's in terms of there's going to be support there. It all depends on how it's worked. But I wouldn't worry too much, because how many other small businesses are going to be in the same boat? And they can't shoot everybody effectively. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Cool. We're going to go to Mr. Lander. Paul, over to you, mate.
Cheers, Brett. Maria, what's the link to claim for the £10,000 grant for Wolverhampton Council?
I've just replied to your comment, Paul. I'm actually a member of the Economic Growth Board, and it's a voluntary position. I knew there's a reason I did that all those years ago. So I actually emailed one of my contacts today, and I sort of said, I can't find how I apply for this grant. And she goes, there you go, there's a link. So I will forward it to you. If you drop me an email, I will forward it to you directly.
Brilliant. Cheers, Maria. Thank you.
Maria, on that point then, would you happen to have also the links for Sandwell, Dudley, Birmingham, Telford, Walsall, and are there any others I missed? Sutton Coldfield? No, you're Birmingham, aren't you, Tony?
Yeah, you know what? I have got some connections. So I will try and get as many as I can for you.
I was only joking, but fantastic. Well volunteered.
You could sell the list for £100 a time. Make a fair bit of cash there.
Well, we're going to cover diversification of businesses in a different talk, if that's okay. So that's fine. Do we have any other questions from the members? So, okay, Mr. Egan.
Yeah, it's a really useful presentation, Maria. Mine's just a really simple question, I think. In terms of the statutory obligations that we need to adhere to, is that the stuff that's outlined in the Companies Act?
It's sort of Companies Act, and sort of also obviously what's in your memo and articles as well. So yeah, if you go onto sort of Companies House links and look at, you know, responsibilities of directors, that's a good starting point. But I think if you've got a good advisor, we can always put a good spin on it. So I'd sort of say that all directors are going to qualify in one way or another, unless, like me, you're actually flat out busy, and the revenue can see that you're flat out busy. We won't go anywhere.
And then worst case scenario as well, if HMRC do look at it in 18 months' time, and then they reach the decision, actually, do you know what, you shouldn't have been on furlough, we'll just have to give the money back.
Yeah, so I think that's the worst case scenario. You claim and then you have to repay it, and you still have the benefit of the cash flow.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool.
And to be honest, just in that point there, Richard, we've had some members calling about business rates, and we've put them in contact with their various councils, and the councils have quite blatantly turned around and said, just stop your direct debit to us, because if you've got the money in your account, at least you can survive. We'll chase you for it. Obviously, as long as you do it in good faith, and we could have a comment on your file to say, yes, you've contacted us. At the end of the day, there's no issue there, because you're trying to do the right thing. At the end of the day, is the money better in your account or the government's? So, cool. Are there any other questions from the members at all? No? Okay, I've got a couple. So one for you then, Maria. You mentioned obviously about the job retention scheme. How in reality do you claim for it? Is this something you do directly, or is it something your accountant will do on your behalf?
We honestly don't know. And
okay,
sort of regarding sort of cost of it, what most accountants, what we're doing and a lot of accountants are doing, are saying, look, when the portal's up, if it's a real simple clicking a few buttons, we'll do it for you, and there'll be no extra charge, and I would take your accountant up on that, because they'll have all your details. But if it's a long drawn out process, they might need to make a charge for it. So the government has said this portal is going to be up in April, because there's nothing in the RTI scheme that allows for it. Now remember, what have been going on behind the scenes is that software developers would have been writing this stuff. So we're expecting the portal in April, and that's where you'll make your claim.
Okay, so it's all through the portal when it's sort of running. So it's a case of watching this space. But I imagine, and this is just an open comment, is even though you don't know the answer yet, I presume that the payments will be quite quick once they've actually been made, or once the claim's been made. Is that correct?
I'd hope so.
That's pretty much, I think, everybody's thoughts there. Going back to members again, so we've got a good 9-10 minutes before Maria has to shoot off. Are there any other questions regarding to any of the schemes that are actually out there? Okay, Tony?
Whilst he's doing that, are we taking bets on how quickly the portal will crash as soon as it's gone up?
7.3 seconds. I've got 4.
I'm guessing they'll press the button to switch it on, and it will literally crash like that. And they'll say it'll be 3 weeks.
I think we're all cynics. I think the portal will work perfectly, but what will happen? There'll be no workers left on the national grid, and there'll be no electric.
Can I just ask? A quick question? I understand about furloughing and just like not working, but obviously, if you take a job on, that will break your. If I take a cleaning job on for one of the care homes, that will change my furlough, won't it? So it'll then break it. If I work for 2 days, I've then got to presumably go back into furlough for the next block of 3 weeks. Is that correct?
It does have to be blocks of 3 weeks, yeah. And we have actually had one of our sort of clients, he put a staff member onto furlough, and then he got a contract, and he was actually cleaning. And I think what you have to look at is the long-term viability of your business, and whether the profit from taking that contract and the sort of long-term viability is better than having the 80% grant. You can sort of have different staff members on furlough. So you might have one staff member for 3 weeks, then a different staff member for 3 weeks, and we cover the 80% for each of them. So it doesn't have to be the same staff member all the time.
So what you're saying is my wife should just shop and just do her normal things because she's on furlough anyway, and then I'll just go out and do what I do. That's what it tends to happen.
Well, you know, the limit is, isn't it? So it's up to £2,500 a month. So if your salary is higher than, so if your 80% is going to be higher than her 80%, it would make sense to furlough you. But how it's sort of going to be policed and checked up on, I don't know. And I'm sort of saying, you know, I would keep some sort of journal. So if they do ask you, you can prove it one way or the other.
Thank you.
Are you limited then, Tony? Is it, Tony, is yours a limited company?
I mean, personally, I am, because that's the way that it works. If you work for bigger people, they like to see a limited company. They don't like to see you as a one-man band. I know that sounds really arrogant, but I've always been that, and I've just like sailed under the limit. You know, for that.
You've probably thought, yeah, I mean, speak to your accountant, but obviously your chances are you're going to be under that 80% thing as a director, and you have to do what's right by the company anyway to keep the company going. So there's probably going to be a number of cracks you can either fall through or take advantage of.
I get it. And joking apart, she's not very well. She's got a bad cough. So it starts, I think. I think this thing's just going to bite harder and harder as we get in.
We can hear her. It sounds like a really bad cough.
That's the dog.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, Tony. I didn't want to say anything at all there, but no, it didn't sound too good at all. Right, are there any other questions from anybody else? No, fantastic. Okay, so obviously we'll thank Maria. Thank you very much. If you can obviously put a round of applause for Maria for obviously helping out there. Maria, that's absolutely fantastic. Obviously, as soon as this recordings as well is done, obviously we'll send you over the links so you can obviously share with anybody else you want to as well. Okay. Just before we go, are there any other questions for anything else related you want to ask other business owners? I'm
looking forward to the IT presentation tomorrow, so thanks for that, Lee.
Absolutely, same here. I've got 3 questions lined up ready for you, Lee. All I can say is, for those, on behalf of those who've been on the BSO panel before for our question time, payback is a bitch. But never mind. We're really looking forward to this. So you have got up to date with all your Linux stuff and all the really good things there, Lee? No? You'll figure it out. Cool. Are there no more questions for anybody else? Fantastic. In that case, then, thank you very much for attending. Apologies if it looks like I've been bombarding you with emails over the last few days, but we've been reacting so quickly to things. I'm just trying to keep members up to date all the while. The next thing we've got is our breakfast event tomorrow morning. If you've not registered on it but would like to be on it, just quickly wave your hand now, make an indication to me that you'd like to go on it. That would be no problem at all. Mr. Lander, you're going to finally come to one of our breakfasts. Fantastic. Yeah. Is that you, Mr. Egan? I can't. Hang on.
Yeah, sorry, you confused me. I thought it was you said it's tomorrow morning. I was thinking, shit, is it Thursday tomorrow? I thought it was Wednesday. But yeah, so if it's Wednesday morning, yeah, I'll do that. That's cool.
Cool. So we've got Richard and Paul Lander. I'll add you to the list because I'll be sending out the link for that. I know Maria's already on there as well. So all I can do is say thank you very much for attending tonight. Any questions you have, obviously you've got Maria's details. She's all on obviously all over the Facebook group as well. Maria, is there anything you would like to ask of the members while we've got them?
Yeah, if you've enjoyed it, obviously, if you all put me a testimonial on your personal pages, that would be absolutely awesome. That's the best thing you can possibly do for me, testimonial. And apparently, the need for will writing has gone up by 76% in the last few weeks. So I do wills as well. So anybody who wants a will, they need to be in touch with me. Thank you.
That's absolutely brilliant. And finally, is there any feedback people would like to give us at this precise second in terms of how this has run? Good, bad, it's absolutely fine.
I think it's brilliant.
I'd like to make one observation, actually, Mr. Sheldon.
Okay.
I think referring to Mr. Stewart's wife in the coffin capacity when it wasn't anything to do with that, I think is grossly inappropriate. I think the way that those noises, when I heard them, I'm sure that I could see Tony's mouth moving a little bit as well, so I think you were mistaken.
Oh, so I do apologise, but I don't know if anybody knows, but I have tinnitus. So, I mean, I heard noise in the background. I wasn't 100% sure what it was. Tony, apologies for any offence occurred, but you are still on the wedding list if our wedding still goes ahead in 18 months' time. Don't worry.
No problem. When I said the dog, I meant our Shih Tzu, not my wife or anything else. So there's no misunderstanding of that. So on that note, I think I'm going to press this button and leave the meeting till next time. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gents, thank you very much. We'll call that a night, and I'll see a few of you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8 o'clock. Thanks very much. See you all soon. Bye.